Good evening and welcome to tonight's special coverage of the Extraordinary Arab Summit, currently held in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, which focuses heavily on Palestine and the reconstruction of Gaza. This summit comes at a time when the people of Palestine are facing immense challenges, especially when witnessing alarming plans such as by U.S. President Donald Trump's that threaten the displacement of many Palestinians from their land. Tonight we'll be discussing these pressing issues with our esteemed guest, Dr. Khalid Jafawi, a renowned political analyst who has been following these developments closely. We will also be looking at the perspective of Kuwait, a country that has always been an advocate for Palestinian rights, as the representative of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Mish'al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Sabah Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah, may Allah protect him, heads the State of Kuwait's delegation to the summit alongside other Arab leaders. Dr. Khalid, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us, especially during or covering major events around this region.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Before we dive into the conversation, let's take a look at the representative of His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince, delivering the State of Kuwait speech at the Extraordinary Summit today. Stay tuned.
The presence and participation of the representative of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. May Allah protect him, in the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo, emphasizes the State of Kuwait's support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك حمد بن عيسى بن سلمان آل خليفة ملك مملكة البحرين الشقيقة رئيس الدورة الحالية، فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس جمهورية مصر العربية الشقيقة، أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو معالي السيد أحمد أبو الغيط الأمين العام لجامعة الدول العربية، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني أن أضم صوتي لمن سبقني بالترحيب والتهنئة لفخامة الرئيس أحمد الشرع وفخامة الرئيس جوزيف عون، وأتمنى لهم كل التوفيق في خدمة بلديهما والعمل العربي المشترك. كما يطيب لي في البداية أن أنقل لكم جميعاً تحيات حضرة صاحب السمو أمير دولة الكويت الشيخ مشعل الأحمد الجابر الصباح حفظه الله ورعاه، وتهنئة سموه لإخوانه أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو بحلول شهر رمضان المبارك، وتقدم بالشكر إلى جمهورية مصر العربية الشقيقة على استضافتها لهذه القمة الهامة، والشكر موصول إلى معالي الأمين العام لجامعة الدول العربية وجهاز الأمانة العامة على الإعداد والتحضير. أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو، إننا نجتمع اليوم في ظروف استثنائية ومنعطف تاريخي غير مسبوق تجاه قضية العرب الأولى، وهي القضية الفلسطينية وحقوق الشعب الفلسطيني الشقيق، حيث أدت آلة الحرب للاحتلال الإسرائيلي منذ أكثر من 15 شهر إلى مقتل ما يقارب 50,000 فلسطيني، الغالبية العظمى منهم من النساء والأطفال، وجرح أضعافهم، وتدمير كامل للبنية التحتية لقطاع غزة. وبعد جهود دؤوبة مضنية من قبل كل من جمهورية مصر العربية الشقيقة ودولة قطر الشقيقة والولايات المتحدة الصديقة، تم التوصل إلى اتفاق لوقف إطلاق النار، واستمعنا بعد ذلك لتصريحات وخطط يتم تداولها بشأن التهجير القسري للفلسطينيين من قطاع غزة، وذلك ضمن سلسلة مستمدة من الانتهاكات الجسيمة للقانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني، والتجاهل المتعمد المتواصل لقرارات الشرعية الدولية، وأن سبيل تحقيق وقف إطلاق النار وإتاحة المجال للحلول السياسية لإعادة تأهيل القطاع ومنح الشعب الفلسطيني لحقوقه المشروعة للعيش في أرضه لن يتحقق بالحلول المتجزئة، حيث أن ما يتم طرحه حول تهجير الشعب الفلسطيني ليس فقط طرحا غير عملي أو واقعي، بل يصل إلى أن يكون جريمة تطهير عرقي في حق شعب أصيل له كل الحقوق التاريخية والقانونية التي تمكنه من العيش على أرضه دون مساومة أو تنازل. ولذلك فإن على المجتمع الدولي وبخاصة مجلس الأمن تأدية مهمته الرئيسية بالحفاظ على الأمن والسلم الدوليين، ووقف المنهجية العدوانية الإسرائيلية المستمرة على قطاع غزة والضفة الغربية، ومنع أي محاولات لفرض واقع جديد عبر التهجير القسري والتوسع الاستيطاني. أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو، لنتفق على أمرين رئيسيين لكي نمضي قدما بشكل منهجي وموضوعي واستراتيجي. فالأمر الأول هو أن دعمنا لهذه القضية المركزية واجب ديني عربي وأخلاقي وإنساني. والأمر الثاني هو أنه لا مجال للعودة لما كان عليه الحال في السابق، حيث أن الكلمات والبيانات والمؤتمرات والقمم لن تجدي نفعاً إذا لم تنتج عن خارطة طريق ملموسة قابلة للتنفيذ والتطبيق على أرض الواقع بملكية عربية في المقام الأول. فوحدتنا هي منارتنا التي نستهدي بها، وتعاضدنا يلهمنا القوة والرشاد. وبناء على ذلك فإن قمتنا اليوم وفي هذه اللحظة التاريخية الفارقة تقع على عاتقها مسؤولية صياغة موقف عربي موحد لمواجهة أي محاولات أو مخططات أو دعوات لتهجير الفلسطينيين وتصفية القضية الفلسطينية على حساب الدول العربية. ولذلك نود تسليط الضوء على عدد من المحددات والخطوات الملموسة نرى أهمية ترجمتها على أرض الواقع، وهي: أولاً، إعلاء الصوت العربي الرافض لأي محاولة لتهجير الشعب الفلسطيني، بالإضافة إلى رفض تحميل دول المنطقة لا سيما جمهورية مصر العربية والمملكة الأردنية الهاشمية والمملكة العربية السعودية أي تبعات جراء دعوات التهجير. ثانياً، صياغة خطة لإعادة إعمار غزة بمشاركة فلسطينية وعربية ودولية تتناول كافة الجوانب التنموية والإنسانية والاقتصادية، وأن تتضمن موقفاً عربياً قانونياً يحمل إسرائيل القوة القائمة بالاحتلال مسؤولية إعادة بناء ما دمرته آلتها الحربية الوحشية، وتعويض أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني عن الأضرار التي لحقت بهم وبممتلكاتهم. ثالثاً، المحاسبة أهم عناصر العدالة، وهذه الأعمال العدوانية تستمر وتزداد سوءاً بسبب غيابها. ولنصل إلى ذلك فلا بد أن يطبق القانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني وقرارات الجمعية العامة وقرارات مجلس الأمن وقرارات مجلس حقوق الإنسان والمحكمة الجنائية الدولية ومحكمة العدل الدولية ذات الصلة. رابعاً، ونظراً للأمام فلدينا استحقاق من شأنه أن ينتج عن مخرجات تاريخية تسهم فعلياً في حل هذه القضية، وهو المؤتمر الدولي لتنفيذ حل الدولتين، والذي سيعقد برئاسة مشتركة سعودية فرنسية في شهر يونيو من العام الجاري. فعلى الدول المشاركة أن توضح ما هي الآليات التي ستنتهجها نحو حل الدولتين بشكل ملموس وواقعي. خامساً، أهمية تعزيز الجهود لحث كافة الدول الأعضاء في الأمم المتحدة والتي لم تقم حتى الآن بالاعتراف بدولة فلسطين الشقيقة بالعمل على ذلك، كما يجب علينا أن ندعم مساعي الأشقاء في فلسطين للحصول على العضوية الكاملة لدى الأمم المتحدة. سادساً، ضرورة توحيد الصف الفلسطيني وتغليب مصلحة الشعب الفلسطيني وحقوقه، بما في ذلك الاتفاق على إدارة قطاع غزة وتعزيز قدرات الحكومة الفلسطينية لتمكينها من القيام بواجباتها، وتوحيد الصف العربي لحماية الأمن القومي العربي بمفهومه الشامل، وذلك من خلال استخدام كافة الوسائل للضغط على الأطراف التي تسعى إلى فرض مخططات التهجير والتعامل مع هذه المسألة كأولوية في السياسات الخارجية العربية. سابعاً، تعزيز الدعم المالي والسياسي لوكالة الأمم المتحدة لإغاثة وتشغيل اللاجئين الفلسطينيين في الشرق الأدنى الأونروا، ورفض أي محاولات لتقليص دورها أو تسييس عملها. وفي الختام، فإن دولة الكويت تؤمن بأن السلام لن يتحقق عبر القهر والإجبار، ولن يفرض من خلال القوة والتهجير، وتجدد موقفها التاريخي والثابت بأن لا طريق للأمام إلا بسلام دائم وشامل وعادل من خلال ما تم إقراره والاتفاق عليه وفق قرارات الشرعية الدولية ومبادرة السلام العربية لعام 2002، وصولاً لإقامة دولة فلسطين المستقلة ذات السيادة على حدود 4 يونيو لعام 1967 وعاصمتها القدس الشرقية. حفظ الله فلسطين الشقيقة وأهلها وأمتنا العربية من كل سوء، وكل عام وأنتم بخير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
The presence and participation of the representative of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmed al-Jabr al-Subah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Subah Khalid al-Hamid al-Subah. May Allah protect him, in the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo, emphasizes the state of Kuwait's support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, you just heard the speech of His Highness the Emir's representative at the Extraordinary Arab Summit currently held in Cairo. Dr. Khalid, we just heard the speech of the representative of His Highness the Emir, and there's a lot of points to cover. But first, how do you think the summit will impact the situation in Palestine, especially with the focus on Gaza's reconstruction?
I think one of the impacts of the summit will be to present to the global world a unified Arab front in regards to the Palestinian issue, and also the summit and in its final communique reaffirmed the Arab position against the displacement of the Palestinian people, and also it reaffirms the importance of finding a final solution to this ongoing conflict, meaning for Israel and the rest of the world to agree on the two-state solution as the final solution to this conflict. In addition to this, His Highness's speech also pointed out that the Israeli side needs to take the responsibility for at least part of the reconstruction, because the destruction in Gaza was caused by the Israeli airstrikes and the Israeli aggression. And I think this is really a very important issue, because the unified Arab front needs to clarify its position towards how they will deal with this ongoing Israeli aggression. In other words, there should be an accountability for the Israelis to at least compensate the victims of their brutal aggression against those unarmed Palestinian civilians. In addition to this, I think the unified Arab front that will come out of the summit will basically impact how the global powers will deal with the issue of these two-state solutions. In other words, the two-state solution at this moment has become the final solution for this brutal and brutal aggression against the Palestinian people. And I think in the next few days we will witness a positive reaction to the summit in Cairo, because in addition to presenting a unified Arab front, the Arabs have already shown that they agreed on certain points that need to be fulfilled by the Israelis and whoever supports the Israeli state.
Dr. Khalid, you mentioned a lot of points that we will get into more details later on, but how significant is the timing of the summit, particularly in light of the ongoing political and humanitarian crisis Gaza is facing?
I think it's really very important. The timing of the summit is very important, and that is why it is described as an urgent summit, because the Arab leaders have realized that the Israeli side is unwilling to sign any final solution to this conflict. In addition to this, I think within the context of some calls for the displacement of the Palestinians from Gaza to other parts of the Arab world represents a threat to the security of the Arab world in general. So the timing is really very important and very significant when we read it within the context of shifting global powers and how, say, China is rising in the globe, and how the United States is changing its policies towards its traditional allies. So it's really very beneficial for the Arabs to present this unified front, at least to protect their own national security against this unpredictable American administration.
I absolutely agree, yes. Dr. Khalid, let's pause here and take a closer look at the current situation in Gaza after the Israeli occupation aggression on the enclave and the challenges that Palestinians continue to face. Stay tuned.
Was born out of a desire for unity among Arab nations in the aftermath of the World War II and the growing influence of colonial powers. Initially comprising 6 founding members: Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Syria. The League aimed to promote collaboration on political, economic, cultural, and social issues. Over the years, the membership expanded to include 22 countries, reflecting the diverse Arab identity. The League played a significant role in advocating for Palestinian rights, especially following the 1948 Arab-Israeli conflict. Throughout its history, the Council has faced numerous challenges, including political fragmentation and regional conflicts. Despite these obstacles, the Arab League has sought to foster solidarity and cooperation among its member states, addressing critical issues like economic development, security, and cultural exchange while navigating the complex geopolitical landscape of the Middle East.
The presence and participation of the representative of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmad al-Jabir al-Sabah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah, may Allah protect him, in the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo, emphasizes the state of Kuwait's support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Welcome back once again to this coverage of the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo. Dr. Khalid, the summit in Cairo is being closely watched, especially with the Gaza reconstruction at the forefront. Can you share with us the atmosphere in the summit and what the expectation for the Arab world and the outcomes?
I think the atmosphere and the summit itself reflects the worries of the Arab world about the how to begin the efforts of reconstruction. In other words, the summit and the Arab leaders have presented this issue to the international community by seeking the funding of the reconstruction in Gaza, and also in His Highness's in the Crown Prince's speech, he pointed out to the need for Israel to take the responsibility for paying compensations for the victims of its brutality in Gaza. And I think looking at His Highness's speech, we understand that the Arab leaders in the summit agree on the need for the speedy reconstruction of Gaza, at the same time placing the funding of these projects within the context of the international community, financial global organizations, rather than only putting the responsibility on the Arab world.
Dr. Khalid, it's interesting you mentioned the Arab leaders. What is your assessment of the Arab leaders' willingness to support Palestine, considering the political dynamic in the region?
I think they have shown their strong support of the Palestinian issue, in addition to presenting within the summit a unified Arab front. All the Arab countries and Arab leaders agree on the need for a final solution to this ongoing conflict, meaning the two-state solution. And I think this unified front will change, hopefully, the perspective of the American administration approach to the conflict by refusing the earlier suggestions of displacing the Gazans into other parts of the Arab world. And in addition to this, it also the summit appeals to the global powers other than the United States, say China and Russia and the rest of the global powers, to contribute to the reconstruction in Gaza, and also to at least guarantee the upholding of the peaceful, if you like, transition, say the return of the Palestinian refugees to Gaza. All these issues need to have a global guarantees, rather than just relying on the Americans and the Israelis. In other words, what is at stake, I think, is the safety of those refugees who will go back to Gaza. So I think the summit basically reflects the expectations of the Arab world that the global powers need to finally take a stand against this ongoing Israeli aggression against unarmed civilians. And basically it exposed the brutality of the Israelis, and how how unpredictable is their policies toward the Palestinians, and how unpredictable, say, the policies, let's say, of certain global powers in regards to the this historical Middle Eastern conflict. In other words, it is an indirect invitation to China and Russia to intervene, to become at least guarantors of a peaceful solution to this conflict.
Earlier, we spoke a little bit about the new U.S. administration and its impact in the world. Dr. Khalid, let me pick your brain a little bit about this topic. How do you see the Arab world response to the plans of U.S. President Donald Trump, particularly regarding the vision of displacing Palestinians from their land?
I think the Arab leaders have already shown their total rejection of the Trump's displacement suggestion, and I think the American president himself retracted some of his earlier proposals in regards to changing Gaza into an investment project. In other words, the Arabs' rejection of this displacement issue by the American administration seems to have clarified, to the Americans, the logical and rational approach to solving such a problem. In other words, the Middle East has its deep complexities, and finding a solution to this ongoing suffering of the Palestinian people cannot be just dealt with as a business transaction. This is a fate of a people, a fate of a history. It's a fate of a culture that is embedded within the Middle East for centuries. So I think the Arab leaders' rejection of the earlier American proposal seems to have changed, at least partly, the American administration approach to this conflict. And now we see a more serious American, if you like, dealing with this issue, meaning seeking the two-state solution. Hopefully within the next few weeks and months, we will witness a shifting of the American approach toward this conflict, and a realization of the American administration that Israel is not the only ally it has in the Middle East. There are other more significant and more historical powers, countries in the Middle East that may provide more security to the American interests in the region.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the most diplomatic and political achievements of the summit, of the current summit.
Dr. Khalid, let's take a small break, watch this report, and we'll be right back.
The Arab Summit in Egypt underscored the continued commitment of Arab nations to fostering a stronger regional cooperation. Leaders from across the Arab world gathered to discuss key political, economic, and security challenges, emphasizing the need for unity and addressing shared concerns. Discussions focused on economic integration, with calls for enhancing trade partnerships, investment opportunities, and infrastructure projects to boost regional development. Energy cooperation was also a key topic, with leaders exploring strategies for sustainable resource management and joint ventures in oil, gas, and renewable energy. On the political front, the summit reaffirmed support for diplomatic solutions to regional conflicts, promoting dialogue and peaceful negotiations. The leaders reiterated their commitment to upholding Arab solidarity and ensuring stability in the region.
The presence and participation of the representative of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmad al-Jabr al-Sabah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah. May Allah protect him, in the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo, emphasizes the state of Kuwait's support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Before we continue with Dr. Khalid Jinfawi, our political expert, we have with us over the phone Nabil Najm Ad-Din, a writer specializing in international relations from Cairo. Mr. Nabil, thank you for joining us. Mr. Nabil, are you with me? Mr. Nabil? I guess we're having issues with the call. We'll try to get Mr. Nabil once again. Let's take a quick break and we'll continue.
The presence and participation of the representative of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmad al-Jabr al-Sabah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah. May Allah protect him, in the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo, emphasizes the state of Kuwait's support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Once again, let's try to. We have over the phone with us is Mr. Nabil Najmuddin. Mr. Nabil, are you with me?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Mr. Nabil, how do you view the future of Palestinian refugees in the concept of, we watched the summit, especially with the Gaza construction at the forefront. Can you give us your insights on what's happening so far?
I believe there is a common ground between the Arab leaders, according to the output of the summit, that the Palestinians belong to their land. Every Arabic state rejects the displacement of the Palestinians from Gaza or West Bank. So this is the biggest and solid output of the emergency summit in Cairo today.
The major focus of the summit is Palestine. How are the Arab leaders, including Egypt, preparing to address the issue of Gaza and the humanitarian crisis there? Is there a united vision for its reconstruction?
Sir, there is a common understanding, and there is a mass agreement between the Arab countries upon the Egyptian proposal for Gaza reconstructions. Every country which has attended the summit has already showed its support for the Egyptian proposal to reconstruct Gaza whilst the Gazaans are there. And the Egyptian plan is going to be for 5 years and is going to cost 54 or 53 billion US dollars. So even the UN Secretary General has declared his support.
If you don't mind elaborating more, because there's a lot of attention on the role of Egypt in leading the reconstruction effort in Gaza. What role do you see Egypt playing in rallying the Arab world to support Gaza's rebuilding?
Egypt has already had several experiences regarding reconstructing cities. If you go back to the Suez Canal cities, Ismailia, Port Said, and Suez, after the aggression of Israel in 1967 and the reconstruction of those three cities, Egypt has done a great job over there. Again, in Sinai Desert, after Camp David agreement, Egypt has proved it has what it takes to reconstruct cities, villages, and communities. The Egyptian proposal, which has been discussed in Riyadh about 10 days ago, and that minor summit, and today has been discussed among the Arab League leaders, is going to reconstruct Gaza whilst the people of Palestine or the Palestinians in Gaza are participating in the reconstruction. Again, Egypt has emphasized that it's going to host an international conference next month called Gaza International Conference to get the world involved in that operation. And the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has declared the launch of a fund for Gaza reconstruction.
Mr. Nabil, we appreciate your valuable input. Earlier, we spoke with Hind Assayed, a foreign affairs editor at Al Arham, a newspaper in Cairo. We asked her what are the key topics that are dominating the discussion and how the Arab leaders positioning themselves to issue on the issue of Palestine and Gaza reconstruction. Here's what she had to say.
The attendance of Arab leaders and representatives today in Cairo summit sends clear message on their commitment before the Arab world legitimate issues. The summit intercepts the Trump plan on Gaza Riviera ambition, We saw the Arab leaders calling upon the UN Security Council to send the peacekeeping troops to Gaza and West Bank. They stressed upon the clear position of all Arab states against mass deportation of Palestinians and called upon the withdrawal of Israel from West Bank and ceasing from breaking into it. They called upon respecting religious sanctities. They stressed the support of the Arab states to the Egyptian plan to reconstruct Gaza as valued for about $53 billion. The Egyptian plan that the Arab leaders endorsed comprised of several stages. The first is about paving roads, operating water and power facilities, fixing houses, fixing hospitals, and setting up temporary houses for Palestinians. The second stage, the removal of rebels, and the third is about the reconstruction itself. Concerning managing Gaza Strip, Egypt has announced forming a committee for that purpose, composed of technocrats and independent personalities. We saw today a clear message from all Arab states endorsing the two-state solution for the Palestinian issue, and that there is no any other plan that will substitute this plan.
That was Hind Sayed from Al Ahram newspaper. Now back to my esteemed guest, Dr. Khalid. Kuwait has always been a strong advocate for Palestine. How do you believe Kuwait's position will influence the outcome of the summit, especially with the representative of His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince, heading a Kuwaiti delegation?
I think Kuwait's position in regards to the Palestinian issue has been clarified by the Crown Prince's speech. His Highness pointed out really very important aspects of the Palestinian struggle, and also it clarifies how Kuwait has always been a historical supporter of the Palestinian people for decades. In addition to this, the speech pointed out the need to take to force Israel to take the responsibility of reconstructing Gaza, because it is basically the aggressor in this context. In addition to this, I think Kuwait has always been a very powerful, very strong supporter of our Palestinian brothers and sisters since the 1960s and even much earlier. In addition to this, His Highness's speech pointed out the need to refund the UNRWA, the Palestinian United Nations Agency, which is really a very important issue, because the Israelis just a few weeks ago prevented the UNRWA from entering into Gaza and providing humanitarian aid. So I think this also clarifies how Kuwait views the Palestinian issue from a humanitarian perspective, and also it calls for the international community to pressure Israel to let the aid to go into Gaza, and for the rest of the Arab world, everyone realizes that Kuwait has always been there for the Palestinians, whether those who lived in the West Bank or in Gaza. Historically, Kuwait has provided billions of dollars of assistance to our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and really His Highness's speech pointed out how committed is Kuwait to continuing to support the Palestinian people.
Absolutely. Like you said, from the start, Kuwait has been a very strong advocate of Palestinians through humanitarian support, schooling, healthcare. Kuwait has always been there. Now, Dr. Khalid, as we wait for the final communique to be presented, there has been significant international pressure on Arab nations to take a unified stance on Palestine.
Yeah.
Do you think we are seeing such a unity from the summit?
I think we do have unity. We witnessed that unity in the final communique as it is being processed, as it is being drafted. It points out how unified the Arabs in regards to solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by basically calling for the final solution, the two-state solution. In next few months, we will also witness another international summit in regards to basically making the two-state solution as a final solution to this conflict. I think the summit also will, or at least the outcome of the summit, will point out to the global powers that the Arabs in general have reached a point where they basically are determined to assist their Palestinian brethren, and they will always be there for them, and they understand the historical and moral responsibility of supporting their Palestinian brothers and sisters, and also that the Arabs realize that the ultimate responsibility for the reconstruction, or at least the funding of the reconstruction, should be paid at least partially by the Israeli government, because it is the aggressor, it is the force, it is the military that destroys Gaza, it is the state that killed almost 50,000 innocent Palestinian civilians. So I think this will ultimately pressure Israel to understand that the Arabs do realize their historical responsibility toward the Palestinians, and it will increase the pressure, the international pressure on Israel, because just earlier, a few months ago, South Africa basically was one of the leading countries in prosecuting the Israeli aggression, and thus gradually the pressure is increasing on Israel, and gradually the Americans, who are the sole, if you like, allies of the Israelis in the region, will realize that they need to balance their act in the Middle East, because the countries, governments, Arab societies will always reject this illogical idea of displacing the native people of Palestine, meaning the Palestinian people, and it will never be accepted. This idea will never be accepted by the rest of the world, as we have seen in the rejection of Ireland, and the rejection of Spain, and the rejection of the European Union itself. So the pressure is increasing upon Israel, and I think the summit will add more pressure on Israel to submit at least, or at least respect the international law.
Dr. Khalid, we spoke about having a unity, an Arab unity from the summit. You also touched base on points from His Highness the Emir's representative speech. Also, I asked Mr. Nabil over the phone call to elaborate more on the issue. Now, the Gaza reconstruction plan is a complex one. Do you believe the plan announced by Egypt are feasible? Let's be clear. Is it feasible, and what kind of challenges would we see when applying this plan?
I think one of the challenges to this,
because I know you mentioned Israel has to hold also a major part of it as it rebuilt, because it's the one that destructed the city, the whole strip.
Indeed, yeah.
So
I think the final draft of the communique, we understand that the Egyptian proposal basically places the funding of the reconstruction upon the responsibility of the international community. In other words, it doesn't require the Arab countries to be the sole contributors of this funding. It basically asks the international financial organizations, global powers, to basically pay for the compensations, pay for the reconstructions, and I think this is basically the logical understanding of how this issue should be solved. Just earlier, we also witnessed how the Europeans or the European Union suggested, or at least argued, that they need to freeze the Russian assets in Europe in order to use them as guarantees for loans to reconstruct Ukraine. And this, I think, we as Arabs deserve to be treated the same way. In other words, the aggressor in Palestine is the Israelis, and the ones who will pay and should pay are the Israelis. The Arabs may say Egypt or the neighboring countries around Palestine may take the responsibility of reconstruction, of sending bulldozers and everything, the equipments and so on and so. But the funding, the financial funding, should come through Israel, either by requesting the international community to put more pressure on Israel, or at least to make it more complicated for Israel to, if you like, to basically reject its responsibility on this issue. In other words, logically speaking, diplomatically speaking, the entity in Israel, the Israeli entity, should be should have the sole responsibility of funding the Egyptian project, rather than, say, the Gulf countries, because we understand maybe we can contribute, but some assistance, but it should not be our sole responsibility for paying for the funding. The only country that should be fully responsible for paying for the funding of reconstruction is what is called Israel.
It's interesting you mentioned this, because, I mean, can the international community, especially the United Nations and major powers, contribute meaningfully to the reconstruction of Gaza, not only the occupation? Or is it just primarily responsibility of the occupation, or maybe the Arab states?
Well, I think it's the responsibility for the reconstruction, or at least the funding of the reconstruction, should be fulfilled by Israel. And the Europeans, who basically a few weeks ago suggested that there needs to be a final two-state solution, should pressure Israel. They have assets, Israeli assets in Europe. They have Israeli assets in the United States. Why not ask Israel to at least use its own assets to compensate for the Palestinians? In other words, why not apply the same scenario that the Europeans wanted to apply in regards to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? Because the Europeans demanded, or maybe they have already started, freezing the Russian assets in Europe in order, for the sake of paying for the funding of reconstructing the reconstruction of Ukraine. Why shouldn't we as Arabs, to request and demand and basically appeal to the international community to be dealt with equally as in the conflict in Ukraine? I think this is the most logical diplomatic understanding of the funding, because the Israelis will never understand that they have to pay, for the reconstruction. They present themselves as being the victims, even though that they are the brutal aggressor in Palestine, and they should, at least according to the international rule of law, they should at least pay some part of this funding, some part of this reconstruction, rather than just making it the sole responsibility of the Gulf countries, or the Arab world.
Dr. Khalid, this is a very wishful way of thinking and putting it about, because, as we know, the occupation entity is an aggressive regime. They disregard the humanitarian aspect of their destruction, and having them pressured into supporting the reconstruction will only come through international pressure, in my opinion.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed. As you said, Mr. Abdulrahim, the Israeli diplomacy, there isn't actually any Israeli diplomacy, but there is only one way of dealing with Israel, according to what we know historically. You pressure them, you put more international pressure on them, they basically submit to that international pressure, especially if the pressure comes from, say, European countries, especially when this pressure is an economic pressure. In other words, Israel now is a pariah. In other words, it has been rejected by many countries in South America, in Europe. Ireland just closed the Israeli embassy a few weeks ago. Spain did the same. European countries, the rest of the European Union are basically very angry at how Israel committed those atrocities. The United Nations agencies have already described what happened in Gaza as an actual and real genocide. So gradually Israel will only feel the pressure of if it understands that it has the final and sole responsibility of funding the reconstruction and basically to submit to the international rule of law.
All of this for the sake of the Palestinian people and getting the Palestinian back on their rightful land.
Indeed, yeah, and to basically stop this illogical and irrational idea of displacing the Palestinian people. I think the issue of the displacement of the Palestinian people was one of the top priorities, top items on the agenda of the summit. And the Arab leaders have already agreed that they will definitely and absolutely reject this displacement, because basically it is an irrational suggestion to displace a people who are a victim to the Israeli aggression for the sake of appeasing such an entity as the Israeli occupation.
Just to add, Dr. Khalid, with the reconstruction plan heading on to be marketed, because I just received words that the official communique is out, and I'll try to bring it up. But for now, what role, or we'll go to the before we wrap things up, what is the let's check this final report on Kuwait's long-standing role in advocating for Palestine and continued support for the Kuwaiti people and government. Stay tuned.
Witnessed many important events in the past year, most notably Palestine obtaining its official seat in the United Nations General Assembly to join the 193 members of the United Nations, holding emergency Arab summits in exceptional circumstances, sweeping the region. The Compass of Arab movement was directed to place the issue of the nation at the top of the list of international priorities, foremost of which the Palestinian issue, considering the war of extermination waged by the Israeli occupation on the Gaza Strip. UN advocacy and peace initiatives. Most Arab nations recognize Palestine as a state and back its membership in the international organizations. They pushed for pro-Palestinian resolutions at the UN and condemned Israeli occupation policies. Egypt and Qatar mediate between Palestinian factions and Israeli occupation entity, while countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar provide financial and humanitarian aid. Despite this, Egypt and Jordan continue supporting a two-state solution. The Arab League maintains political backing for Palestine, but real impact varies as national interests often take priority.
The presence and participation of the representative of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmad al-Jabr al-Sabah. May Allah protect and bless him, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah. May Allah protect him, in the Extraordinary Arab Summit in Cairo, emphasizes the state of Kuwait's support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Well, before we wrap things up, I would like to share with you, dear viewers and my guests in the studio, the final communique that was just announced. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi announced the adaptation of the final statement of the Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo and the Egyptian plan for the reconstruction and development of Gaza Strip. The President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that during the speech at the conclusion of the Emergency Summit in Cairo, at the conclusion of this pivotal summit, I extend to you my sincere thanks and great appreciation for the sincere efforts, vision, and valued support. I extend my thanks to His Majesty, the King of Bahrain, President of the current Council of the League of Arabs and for their Majesties and Highnesses' efforts in holding the Extraordinary Summit. Well, Dr. Khalid, that was the final communique. I'm guessing it's out and the ball is rolling. Any final comments?
Well, I think I wish the best for the Egyptian proposal, and I think this is, at least at this time, within this historical context, it will be the only significant effort to be respected and to be fulfilled, meaning the Egyptian proposal has been created to assist our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and I think the summit and the Arab leaders have succeeded in basically providing a solid plan for a real reconstruction of Gaza.
Dr. Khalid, it's always a pleasure to have you with us here in the studio. And our dear viewers, thank you for joining us. We hope that this summit brings a real change that is lasting for the Palestinian people. And until next time, thank you for joining us.